Welcome to AP European History with Dr. Brovkin. We continue with the French Revolution. We talked about the causes of the French Revolution in the first segment, and today we actually examine the events in Paris in 1789. Now, from your questions, it's obvious that some of you don't even know what is a General État. General État is the assembly of the land, and it was not assembled for many, many decades. And it is actually to raise money. They are in charge of money, as any national assembly like the English Parliament is. The kings prefer to rule without them, but this time France is bankrupt. And this is why General État have to assemble. It consists of three segments, three groups. The first estate, the church. The second estate, the nobles. The third estate is everybody else. 97% of French citizens, which means peasants, workers, artisans, bourgeoisie, including the bankers like Helvetius, and the notaries, the educated society that does all the business transactions, and they are the voice, they are the active part, they are the ones in provincial parliament, they are the noblesse, the road. So these are the people who are in their majority get elected to the provincial parliament and now to the general État. So when the king, as I discussed before, says no to these proposals of equal taxation, of reform of the church, of confiscation of the lands, of equal burden and alleviation of famine for peasants, his indecision is what provokes the next step of the delegates in the third estate. So the delegates to the third estate refuse to assemble. They go to the tennis court, which is not a tennis court, but which is a sort of area right next to it, to the building, and they say, no, we're not going to be dismissed, and they proclaim themselves Assemblée Nationale. So that they proclaim themselves a parliament, and they tell to the king in defiance, no, you cannot dismiss us. So that in itself, just like the petition of right and what followed in England, took more than 10 years in England to scale out into a revolution. They did abide in England. They did go home. The Long Parliament was reconvened much later. Here, it's right now, right there. We are not going to go home, and we are going to stay until our demands are met. As I mentioned before, Louis had a choice. He could have saved himself and France from the revolution if he had sided with the Third Estate against the tiny minority of aristocrats who wanted to keep their privileges and the church. But he got scared, as always. That would get him into trouble and get himself killed in the end. His fear, his cowardness, his incapacity to take decisions. So basically, what happens is that everybody suspects everybody else of the next step being counter-offensive. So the last 2 weeks of June is the National Assembly is very suspicious that the king is going to try something nasty on them and disband them, and that it was going to go from words to action. And that leads to what is celebrated in France as the holiday of the Bastille Day, which is the storming of the Bastille. Bastille is a fortress that doesn't exist anymore because it was destroyed in these days of July 1789. It's a prison, and there was one prisoner in it. But why are they going to storm it? They want to storm the Parisian crowds, would be extremely important force in the French Revolution. These are the artisans and the workers and the fish ladies, the women from the fish markets with huge knives and very revolutionary. The future, they would be called sans-culottes, these men and women. And they are the ones who want to get arms. And the rumor goes that there's a whole lot of rifles in the Bastille. And therefore, you have to arm the people. So this is sort of a cry of the French Revolution to arms, to defend l'Assemblée Nationale, to defend the revolution against who? The king and the German troops that he might use in his defense. So this is why they go to Bastille. They storm it, they dismantle it brick by brick, a lot of bricks wind up being taken away or stolen or whatever to other construction sites and stuff like that. But it's a very interesting. You have drawings showing how the fortress that looks pretty medieval fortress is taken off brick by brick. They just disassemble a huge fortress, and they do find one prisoner who actually wanted to be left there. He was quite comfortable in this, and there's a small number of guards that are killed on the spot, and there's a director of the prison who asks for the crowds to kill him, which they do with great joy and jubilation. And this is the first blood that is spilled, the guards of the Bastille. Now, this is the first victory of the first victory of the revolution. Paris now is safe in the hands of the Assemblée Nationale, and now begins a very interesting process, which would be, as I call it, a competition between who is more radical, who is more revolutionary, and the kind of a new dynamic of the revolution that we would also see in the French Revolution. And they will always become more radical and more revolutionary. People would come to the fore. So the Assemblée Nationale wants to show its authority, and it is in charge, and it is leading the masses rather than following them. And therefore, it is in August that they publish historical documents, which is called Déclaration des droits des hommes, Declaration of the Rights of Man and Citizen. And that becomes a standard document of the French Revolution, which does proclaim égalité, fraternité, liberté. It's a document that's historic in its significance because the major principles of the French Revolution are all there. They do proclaim they do list a number of principles and ideas that had long been articulated by Helvétius and Holbach and Rousseau and Voltaire and Diderot and others, and now it becomes the official sort of document of the revolution, the rights of man and citizen. It also creates a new idea of citizens, which the French are still proud to the present day. I was at a conference and somebody says, "And who are you?" And a person in the conference stood up and said, "I am a French citizen." So this is something that is a proud title of the French that was born in those days. As a result of that, the Assemblée Nationale becomes organized. They form the committees and the factions, and they little by little form political parties that are beginning to debate issues and how to reform economic system and what to do with the church and with the lands, and it's a huge agenda. But the people are impatient, and most of all, they are suspicious of the king's intention. And again, Louis doesn't speak that much. He's just kind of sitting there. He's scared. He's sitting in the palace, and his relationship with the Assemblée Nationale is not clear. So the more silent he is, the more people suspect that he's up to no good. And it's not going to end with just arming the people from the rifles of the Bastille. They need an answer from him, what his intentions are. Is he with the revolution or is he not? And this is another chance for Louis to save himself, which he again misses. And the events that I'm talking about are called the March on Versailles. The March on Versailles is an extremely important stage of the French Revolution. It happened in September 1789, and as you know, Versailles is 20 kilometers from Paris, and this is where Louise is, and Marie Antoinette. And so the crowds of Paris, they go, they march, they just form a column, and they go on foot 20 kilometers to Versailles. What's the purpose? The purpose is to give an answer from the king. What is his intention? Is he with the revolution or against? And what is the future going to hold for these people. So it's led by a lot of women, a lot of revolutions. Actually, women are one of the crucial forces. The Parisian women, and as I said before, the fish market women with long knives, and working class women in all kinds of jobs that have pretty much they're fearless. As a matter of fact, I should comment that in many revolutions, men are more fearful. Men think more about the consequences. Maybe they say because women are more emotional. For whatever reason, women are less fearful, and they just go without any fear as what's going to happen to them. Maybe they just feel that the soldiers not going to openly fire at the women. I don't know why, but they are in many situations much more daring in their actions than men are. In any case, they come to Versailles, and here's this huge palace, and they begin to chant that they want to see the king. And the king, what do you think? He's scared. And again, this is his last chance. Come on, Louis. If he had come out to the balcony and say, my dear Parisians, what can I do for you? I love you. Let's discuss what we could do together with the National Assembly to save France for this horrible peril that we found ourselves because of the British. You know, that could have been a political agenda that could have found some response. No, he doesn't. He's hiding. He's running away. So then the crowds rush into the palace and they start chasing one room after another looking for Marie Antoinette, and they want to kill her, and she's scared and she's running from them room after room, and then finally there's the last room that she goes and finds Louis there, and he holds her, and they're trembling from fear that these crowds are going to burst in and kill them. And they do burst in, but they don't kill him. They still don't want to kill him. They want an answer from their king. Just give us the answer. Are you with us or not? He doesn't. He's blowing up a second chance, the third chance. He's going to continue to blow his chances until the revolution would kill him, would find him guilty of treason and execute him. But that's going to be a while before that happens. So what do? They arrest the king. They kill all the guards, like in Versailles. They put the heads of the guards on spikes. And this is the incredible scene that is depicted in many pictures. That you have the king scared and Marie Antoinette put in a carriage. And they are in the carriage. They didn't force them to walk. They should have forced him to walk back to Paris. The crowds jubilant with the spikes, with the heads of their guards dripping blood and all that stuff. Real scary. Is marching back to Paris with their king, who is in the carriage, and they escort him back to Paris. So in a sense, Louis becomes a prisoner of Paris, or to be specifically Parisian revolutionary masses. They put him in the Tuileries Palace, and he's going to be guarded now. He's pretty much a prisoner. He can't leave. They want to make sure he doesn't leave, because if he does, who knows what he's up to. They don't trust him. They increasingly are frustrated with him, with his inability to say openly what he wants to do and whether he's going to support their demands, and when in the world are they going to get bread, and when the economic situation is going to stabilize. So he does not provide any of the answers, and he's just silently put into Tuileries Palace, where he's going to remain for another year and a half, again with the same kind of trembling fear and no capacity to make any actions. So this is the end, what we would call stage one of the French Revolution, ending with the March on Versailles. And now we finish, but tell your friends to subscribe to AP European History with Dr. Brovkin.